Today, Aviation Theater is visiting the Fallbrook Air Park for their annual Avocado Days Festival. Hi everybody, this is Captain Fred, your host for Aviation Theater and a proud member of the San Diego Aerospace Museum, the first place to visit when you come to San Diego. We have a good program for you today, and we'll get started right after this important message. Our next pilot is Bill Allen, and the airplane that he has is a Stearman. Bill, would you tell our viewers what a Stearman, I'm not stuttering, tell them what a Stearman is.
Well, I don't know what a Stearman is.
As compared to a Boeing Stearman.
Well, this is a Boeing Stearman that's been civilianized because it's got a civilian paint job on it and the wheel pants. Other than that, it's basically a stock Boeing Stearman, which was the Army primary trainer in World War II, a PT-17.
Now, originally, a Stearman, Beech, and Cessna were together and made the Travel Air.
Absolutely.
And then they separated, and Beech made Beechcraft, Clyde Cessna made Cessna, and Stearman made Stearman.
Yep, Lloyd Stearman, he did.
And then he sold out to Boeing.
That's correct.
And they made the Boeing Stearman.
Right.
Okay. Tell our viewers about this airplane.
Well, this one was built in 1941, and after the war, many years later, about 25 years ago, it was rebuilt by Mid-Continent back east, and it was custom done for actor Steve McQueen. And this ended up being the last airplane that Steve McQueen owned, and he flew it quite a bit. When he got sick and passed away, the airplane was given to a friend of his, Chuck Bale, and Chuck wore the airplane out, and so then I ended up buying it from him about 2 years ago, and then we've overhauled the engine since then, so it has a brand new 220 Continental engine on it, and we did all the flight controls, and it's still running around with the grade A linen as the fabric on the airplane, and I think in another couple of years we're going to have to bite the bullet and take it all down and recover the airplane.
What brings you to Fallbrook Air Park today?
Well, the flowers, for one thing, they're absolutely beautiful, and Sherry, the very nice gal that runs the airport up here for the county, was gracious enough to call and give us an invitation, so we hurried back from the space shuttle launch to come and fly the Stearman up here, and ended up having a dead battery this morning, but I finally managed to get here a couple hours late.
For our viewers, at the end of the runway at Fallbrook is the Color Spot Nursery. And it's acres and acres of beautiful, bright-colored flowers right at the end of the runway.
Yeah, you get avocados and pretty flowers.
Thank you for being with us today.
Well, thanks for asking me.
Bill Allen and his Stearman airplane. One of the mainstays each year at the Fallbrook Air Show is radio control models. And with me is Bob Lang, president of the Palomar Radio Control Model Club. And I was talking to a friend of yours the other day, Rick Pike.
Yeah.
And he's the big kahuna for hobby people.
Vice President.
That supplies many of the radio control models that your club uses.
Yes, sir.
And you've grown, what, 100 people in the last year?
150 last year, Fred. We're at 308 right now, and we're aiming to be the biggest club on the planet.
Well, you're well on your way to that.
Been taking in about 10, 11 members a month.
One of the unique aspects of your club is that people who are interested in radio control models can actually come up to your airport, which is a little bit north of Escondido,
Yep.
and they can actually fly radio control models free.
We have trainers up there. We'll put them on a buddy box where we hook 2 transmitters together with an instructor, and the instructor will help them fly and see if they like it or not. That way they don't spend a lot of money on it until they figure out if they really want to do this hobby or not. So.
Very good. What would you like to share with our viewers about radio control models?
Well, this is a great family hobby. It's great for kids. The kid gets into radio control. He's going to be in a garage building. He's going to be at the flying field flying. You don't have to worry about the kids. They learn something. This hobby they can learn things from.
Number one, it's educational.
You bet.
Because you have to learn about physics and mechanics.
Yeah.
And number two, they're busy actually building and working with the models.
They're learning something. They're making things that they're creating out of their own minds. So.
And then when they get it finished, they bring it out to your model airport, and instead of getting a ring through their nose or dyeing their hair purple, they're actually flying radio control model airplanes.
And they're hanging out with a bunch of guys. When we get on the flight line out there, you won't know if you're standing next to a janitor or a nuclear physicist. We're all the same. We're just out there for model airplanes.
And the people that fly in your club are, I know you have rules in your club, and they're all decent, wholesome people. It's almost like being in the Boy Scouts.
It is. We have 308 really nice people out there. If you go out there, they'll talk to you, answer all your questions, let you look at the airplanes. It's just a real friendly club. We're a family club. The ones that have a problem with that, they go somewhere else.
Now, you have food facilities. You have a covered building. You have a paved runway.
Yes, sir.
The family can come and bring a picnic lunch.
Yeah, we got 93 acres out there, and we have picnics.
93 acres.
Yeah. We let our members camp overnight in their motorhomes and trailers and stuff for 2 or 3 days, and it's a nice place.
Thank you for visiting with us today. Bob Lang, president of the Palomar Radio Control Model Club. We have a helicopter giving rides here at Fallbrook Airport. I'm sure you can hear him. With me now is Ron Attig, who's the owner of this beautifully restored Cessna bird dog. Ron, is this your first time here at Fallbrook?
No, it isn't. I've been here probably 4 or 5 times now.
Why do you keep coming back to Fallbrook Airport?
Well, it's a fun place to come to. It's always a challenge. And enjoyable. And today's weather is great, and there's a good day to fly, no rain.
What would you like to tell our viewers about Fallbrook in particular?
Well, Fallbrook is a nice little airport. We come up and support their needs and activities, which this time, of course, is the Avocado Festival. And they requested maybe some airplanes and stuff, so we come up to help them out.
Now, it's an uncontrolled airport. That means that there's no tower.
That's correct.
So if you have an experimental or a home built or something, this would be a good airport to come to.
Well, it's true if you don't like towers. Just so long as you use your radio and let people know where you are. The biggest problem is people not telling you where we are in the pattern.
Tell our viewers a little bit about your airplane. It's new.
Well, I just finished a total restoration. I purchased
I hear a radial engine.
That's Bill Allen, I believe.
That's Bill Allen and his Stearman.
Stearman.
As opposed to a Boeing Stearman. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
That's quite all right. I purchased this airplane over a year ago in 1,000,000 pieces and trucked it all home and worked on it 7 days a week, 10 hours a day, and this is what we have. So,
now this is a Cessna bird dog, which just recently celebrated its 50th anniversary.
It did, and my partner Dick Bunting and I took his bird dog. We went back to Wichita, Kansas, back to the Cessna factory. and they had a big celebration, week-long celebration for the bird dog, and it was great.
Thank you for visiting with us today.
Thank you, Fred.
Ron Attig, owner of this Cessna bird dog. With me now is Fred Christlieb, and you work for the FAA.
That's correct, Captain Fred.
What's the FAA doing here today? There's no tower.
Well, what we do is at most air shows and activities like this, what we do is we come out and we mingle with the people, and we have newsletters and our safety program. We promote the safety program and make it very visible to the people who are aviators out here. I mean, just because it doesn't have a control tower doesn't mean that we're not, concerned with safety.
Right, and the real reason you're here today is education. You're passing out brochures.
Absolutely.
And new placards and landing patterns.
That is correct. With the new runway incursion rules that are coming up and everything, this is what we're doing to make the folks aware of it, and the best way to make them aware is get out and mingle with them.
And what better place to do it than at an air show?
Right, and not for an enforcement activity. It's strictly for safety and the promotion of safety, and so people don't have accidents.
And a lot of people don't realize how much education work you really do.
That is very true, because unfortunately it isn't shown on TV and things for the safety things. Usually at an accident or something is about the only time folks who are not involved with aviation really get to see anything.
And they don't show on the news the 10,000 good landings and takeoffs that take place.
That is correct, and because it is far safer than driving cars, and those are old records.
Very good. Thank you for visiting with us.
Thank you.
And thank you for doing your education gig here today at Fallbrook.
Thank you very much, Captain Fred.
Our next pilot here at Fallbrook Air Park is Gail Hess, who built this amphibian airplane with his own hands. Gail, tell our viewers about your experience in being able to land on the water here in San Diego County. The county has come a long way.
Well, they certainly have, Fred. It did take about 5 years of negotiation and discussion, and that was one of essentially a learning process, because we must remember that most of the public are not very much aware of amphibians and aircraft in itself. So once that was achieved, the people here in San Diego were very cooperative. They've given me a permit. They've also recently given me ability to add additional pilots to the permit process. And we have a couple of the lakes, El Capitan and Barrett, which we can land under certain conditions on the days it's closed to other activities. So
Now, nothing in this airplane touches the water except the bottom of the fuselage.
That's absolutely true.
Which is a boat, really.
Yes, it is, and that was one of the educational processes that we needed to carry out, was the fact that there is no polluting water recirculation or oil.
The engine and the propeller is 10 feet above the ground.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So it's my great pleasure, and in my lifetime, a pleasure to be able and be given permission by the city of San Diego to land on the lakes.
Mm-hmm. Why are you here at Fallbrook Air Park today?
Well, I think that Sherry Miller and the manager of the airport and the folks at the airport are working very hard to further small and private aviation. I think we all need to support that effort. And so I've flown in to allow folks to see my airplane and to discuss the process of building an airplane. And it's my pleasure to be a part of this growing and very nice airport.
Thank you for visiting with us. Gail Hess and his home-built amphibian airplane. I'm standing in front of a yak. For those of you who think that's a Russian animal like a water buffalo, that's correct. but it's also an airplane. And with me is Monty Beck, who is the owner of this Yak airplane. What are you doing here at Fallbrook Air Park?
Well, I got a call from one of my buddies, and he said he wanted to go up and they wanted to do a little flyby for the air show. So if I wasn't doing anything, if I could go along. So here I am. I had the day off. I was supposed to go camping, but it rained yesterday, but it's beautiful today. So
tell our viewers about the Yak. It's a Russian-built airplane.
Actually, this is a Chinese. This is a Nanchang CJ6A. We use the Yak call sign because it's easier to say than Nanchang, but also it was designed by the Russians originally, and through the technology trade, it was manufactured in China, and they've made some alterations to it.
Some of them were built in Poland also, but it's a Russian airplane.
Well, this one, there's the Yak 52 that's real similar in looks, but this one has gear that retract fully, and it is different. It's a CJ6. It's manufactured in China, and the Russian one has a little different tail on it, but it was designed originally, I think, as a Yak 18, and then the Chinese and the Russian one kind of veered off.
How did it get from China to Fallbrook Air Park?
Well, a buddy of mine called me up one time to see an airplane he had just bought at Ramona, and so I went up to look at it, and somebody had imported 4 airplanes to sell them, and one of them had fallen through. So it was sitting there in the mud in Ramona in a crate, and I bought it.
So you can import airplanes from China to the United States?
Yes, it was actually some Chinese people that live in Canada had imported it into Canada and brought it down to San Diego to have it put together.
And you're based at Ramona?
Yes, I am.
Thank you very much for visiting with us today.
You bet.
The Chinese Yak. With me now is Harold Middleton. Would you please tell our viewers about your airplane?
Okay, Fred, this is actually a Nanchang CJ6. It was used in the military in China for basic training of their pilots. This one was surplused back in the late 80s, and as best we understand, it was used between 1975 and 1988. They surplus them with about 4,000 hours and put them in the boneyard. This one was bought out of the boneyard and completely disassembled and reassembled in the United States and brought up to our standards. And I've been flying this airplane since 1992.
And where are you based?
Out of Ramona, California.
Thank you very much for telling us about your airplane.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Our next pilot is Michael Rutledge. And would you tell our viewers about your airplane, please?
Yeah, Fred. What I've got is a 1956 Beech T-34A. It was used by the Air Force from about 55 and was retired in 1959. Went through a couple of private owners, and the current owner is Pamela Salisbury at Coronado, California. And I'm a mechanic, and she gives me the privilege of flying it on the weekends.
Now, this was a trainer?
It was. It was Air Force basic trainer used in the 50s. As you can see, looks a little bit like a Beech Bonanza, but the cockpit is actually set in, much like the jet fighters of the 1950s. So a lot of the pilots, this is the first aircraft they flew in the Air Force. All the controls, the switches are all in the same spots as the Century Series fighters that the Air Force used. And they were able to move from this aircraft right into the fighters without having to learn a whole new set of switchology.
Now, this plane replaced the AT-6 or SNJ?
That's correct.
As a trainer?
It did. It replaced the AT-6 that the Air Force used. And it was actually shortly in 1959, this was replaced by the T-37 the Air Force still currently uses.
Is that what they call the baby jet, the two-place jet side by side?
It is. I believe it's called the Dragonfly, and it's side by side, got 2 small turbojet engines.
Yes. I want one of those for Christmas.
I do too. I do too, Fred.
They use that. They have a flying club at the Air Force Academy.
Right.
And they have several of those that they fly, and they call them Tweety Bird.
That's right.
Because they bust your eardrums when they fly by.
They do.
What are you doing here at Fallbrook today?
Well, I chose to come to Fallbrook. My parents live about 2 blocks away, so that'll be a nice opportunity for them to come in and see me fly. And also the other 3 aircraft that you interviewed and their pilots, we fly together quite frequently, probably about every weekend or so. So we like to do formation demonstrations, and just have a good time flying with each other.
And a helicopter is passing right over. Thank you for visiting with us today.
Thank you, friend.
Michael Rutledge.